So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Kristina Stanley. I am the CEO of Fictionary. I created it. It's my thing, my passion. I love to see so many people here, and I'm really excited to talk to you all about it today. So, I'm going to share my screen. We're going to cover basically what Fictionary is. I'm going to show you some tips and tricks. Please do ask questions, come off mute, or type in the chat, whatever you're comfortable with. Super happy to answer as we go. And I've got to say, I love seeing so many faces live on the video. It makes me feel very welcome and warm that people are willing to come on screen. When this is recorded, your faces don't show up, just mine or who's ever talking. So don't need to worry about that. So let's just get going. We'll start with just a few little charts. And okay, I might be just a tad biased about Fictionary's most loved features because I love Fictionary because I started it. So first of all, who am I? I write the Write Novels That Sell series, and these books are designed to be basically theory, nothing to do with the software. It's just the theory behind structural editing of fiction, on how to write a series and outlining a novel. They're also the course books that we use for Fictionary Live. I'm an award-winning fiction author. I started my career writing mystery. My current work in progress is a fantasy, possibly romantasy. We'll see how that goes. I'm a structural editor, and I'm also a guide dog puppy raiser. I volunteer, and I've been doing this for years. I'm on my 6th dog who joined my house not long ago. She's a lovely little yellow lab, and she's a puppy, so you know what that means. So that's me in a nutshell. Oops. Go to the next screen. Coming up, we've got Secrets to Writing a Fantasy, and this is coming out in the next week or two. We're very close to publication. Then I have Secrets to Writing a Romance, who I'm co-authoring with Linda O'Donnell. And then the lovely Lisa Taylor is writing with me Secrets to Writing a Mystery. So we're in the research phase of pulling out the whole structure. Yes, Vivier, thank you. Woohoo, mystery. It's a tough genre to crack because there's so much variety in a mystery. And so we're having a really great time reading all the different types of books and figuring out what is the pattern and what is the key structure for a mystery novel. Fictionary Live, we can come back to that. Where I really want to go is to the community. So everybody here is already in the community because you have to be in the community to be in this. So I don't need to go type a yes for who's actually in the community because here you are. So the community started a couple of years ago now, and it's designed to really give as much as we can to help writers and editors connect with each other, to write better books, basically. And so we're trying a combination of, some of it's free, some of it is subscription model, some comes with the software, so that we can accommodate as many people as possible and offer something really special to writers. So I'll just go, I'll give you sort of the tips and tricks of the community for anyone who hasn't really had a look at it yet. So in the welcome page, this is really just where you get started. We give you a little overview. If you're looking for key things to do, here's the place to look. The thing I want to point out is our community guidelines. And Betty Jo already put the word in. Kindness is our word. It's really important to me. I believe that we can have a place of true kindness within this community for working with each other and encouraging each other to be creative and write fantastic books. And this comes from me, my personality, that I do well when I'm encouraged. And if something is too hard and critical, I just don't do well. I can't be creative. I start thinking about all those things I can't do, as opposed to these are the things I can do. And okay, yes, I need to work on all those other things, but I can do this, and I find it motivating. And so I wanted this community to be truly a place of kindness. And on that, Linda O'Donnell, who I'm also co-authoring work, she is coming on as our first moderator, and she's going to help ensuring that things stay kind and give little kindness tips if things sort of slide one way or the other. And you can always reach out to me through a direct message in the community if you feel something is not right, or you're not being treated with kindness. I'm there to help with that. I'm in the community every single day. I love this place. Here, for new people coming in, if you haven't already, come and say hello. It's a great place to put, just who you are and what you're writing, and anything interesting you want to tell people. And if you want to be tagged as a specific type of writer, fantasy, mystery, etc., just again DM me, and I can put a tag on your name with you. If you're an editor, I can do that too. Then we have what is Fictionary Live, and what is Fictionary? Not Fictionary Live, and this is where we talk about all of the different things we have within Fictionary. So we've got the community, we've got our software, we've got Storyteller Premium software, which includes Fictionary Live, which is our live training classes. We've got our Story Coach software for professional editors. We've got our editing certification, which many people here are taking our October cohort. And I'm super excited about that because we're trying something new this time. And what we're doing is giving people access to the self-paced online portion of the course really early, so that by the time we get to the live classes in March, everybody's got a baseline, and it's not so overwhelming when you first come in and you think, oh, it's too much. So we're learning from teaching in the past and decided we do it a little bit differently to help people get through the process. You can also hire professional story coach editors who've gone through this program. You can hire them directly from the community as one-on-one. You can hire them through us, whatever you like to do. And we have a quick start edit where you can hire an editor just to do one scene. And sometimes that's quite fun and it's very enlightening. And once in a while, we'll do a quick start edit live so everybody can see, an actual scene being done. So Mary says, contemporary, she's writing contemporary, clean romance author, writing Lone Star State. Nice, very nice. Kristina, I love your name spelled with a Z. I'm so grateful for the free part of the Fictionary. I've never been able to take part otherwise. Well, fantastic. That's great news. Then we have Fictionary Live. So Fictionary Live here was my dream. Come back. That's not what I wanted to do. We'll go into the events. I wanted a place where it's kind of like Peloton for writers, where we have an editor working live with writers. And so we adapt this as we go. We're trying new things continually. And what we're doing is we're trying to have people bring their actual manuscripts and work on them during the class. And so when you go through these 6 weeks courses, hopefully you're working on your book at the same time and asking questions and getting feedback for them. And so you can see here are all the events coming up. Today, this is our very first write-in. Angie is going to host it. And we took some feedback from people last year that the class 1 of the Stories Foundations course is really where you're doing an outline or a post-draft outline. Then the today's class is following that class, and it's a write-in where you work on the scene that you learned about the day before, and so people can have a write-in together. So we're testing it out. It's in beta mode, and we're going to see, do people like this? Should we do it for other classes, etc. Vera says, love Fictionary Live. I pretty much live there. Yes, you do. I've seen you many, 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 many times. Story Talk is something interesting that we're trying, and Story Talk is a AI generated conversation, and what it's done is taken the theory out of the classes, because we don't record the classes because we want people to work on their actual manuscripts. So this takes the theory out and posts it here in a short 5 to 15 minute. It's edited by humans, of course, because we all know AI can, hallucinate, and so it's got to be accurate. And so we've added that. That's new. We're testing it out to see if people like it. Same thing with story theory. We're adding in half-hour classes that we're going to record. And so this is an instructor coming in and teaching a very specific topic. So we'll try that. And then the homework is here because we want everyone to do their homework every week so that in that 6 weeks, your book actually moves forward. Okay, so that's Fictionary Live part. Then we have our Learning Hub, and this is where our free events are. And you can click these buttons. Anywhere you see buttons like this, you can sort the space. And that makes it really easy. So we can look at just free events. So look, this one's now. Hey, we're in a free event. Isn't that awesome? And then you can see through what the other free events are, and we update these regularly. We bring in external speakers, we pick different topics. People ask us, I'd like something on how to do a book cover, for example. And this is where we bring in stuff on the free side. And then if you want to see them all, so you're curious about what's happening in Fictionary Live, you can also see that. This Ask an Editor and Celebrate Success, which is down here. These are the top 2 used spaces in Fictionary. Ask an Editor is where you can ask any question about editing your novel, and an editor will answer. And it's a great place. I love it because people learn from other people's questions. And it gives you a chance to get to know the editors and see who they are. And so if one day you want to hire an editor, you get to know them a little bit and you see their style and you can see if that's a fit with you and it's the type of person you would like to have for your story. Insider's View of Story Editing is a course. Story Coach certification. This is where we certify editors. What's new at Fictionary? This is where I post where anything is new that I basically want to say. It's pretty much me. Occasionally somebody else posts, but it's pretty much me saying what's new. These not everybody sees. It's only if you're in these certification programs. I'm in my admin account, so I see everything. Writer's Lounge is where you can chit chat with everybody on just general chats. If you want to share testimonials, if you want to share an aha moment, this is really fun when people come up here and say, hey, I just realized this about my book or my point of view or who my protagonist is. Feedback requests. So say you've written a blurb and you want people to read it and give you feedback specifically. We've got online resources, our software, and some target goals. This, though, this is the happy place in Fictionary. Like, oh, look, Barbara, debut novel launched. Yay, Barbara. And so you can see she's got 17 comments on here, people cheering her on. It's a really nice place to get motivated and where kindness comes from. Our genre space is where you can join different genres if you just want to talk to people about your own genres. Writers' resources. This is where we've got, you can pick an editor. We've got books that we recommend. We've got free books. We've got discounts from other software providers. Here you can book a story coach edit, a quick start edit. This is an attic space, so it's just old stuff that nobody else can see. So on that, any questions, comments about the community? I'll just stop for a second because I know I tend to chit chat. Okay, I mean, it's pretty clear. It's a community and it's circle software. I really like it. So with Fictionary, basically what we are, so we'll just go back to the home. This is our goal. So I'm just going to round back before I show you just a little peek at the software. I just want to round back about what we're trying to do. And I see Linda's here. It's a great place to make solid connections and get help and encouragement. Is community the same as home? Home is just your home space. The community is the whole thing. It's just the whole thing. And the home just brings you back to this home page. So you just start at the top. This is where the feed of the latest posts are. So if you just want to see what's the newest post within Fictionary, you can come here. Linda, I don't know if you were here earlier, but I did mention that you're coming on as a lovely moderator with kindness to help keep the community full of kindness. Come off mute just for a second and say hello and wave so people can see who you are, will you?
Here I am. Hello. And yes, I did hear. I'm excited about being a moderator. I'm sure everybody's going to continue to just keep the kindness going. So you know me, I'm the kindness ambassador, and I'm going to make sure everybody. I'm going to sure. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Sure. In a kind way. In a kind way. I recall.
And I look forward to just getting to know more people too.
Fantastic. Thank you, Linda. Yeah, so with all of Fictionary, so when I think of Fictionary in my mind of what we're trying to do, it's really several things. And one is it's this community, and it's our courses, and our events. It's our software. And it's our resources, which is our books or links to other, other helpful books or bringing in people from other communities. And we're trying to give an all-round teaching package that focuses on story structure. So we don't focus on copy editing, we don't focus on proofreading, we don't focus on publishing a book. We can bring in experts to talk about that, but we are not the experts. We are experts on the structure of a story. And so our belief is, without structure, there is no story. You have to have a solid story, and then everything else follows that. And without a solid story, there's no book yet. And we want to help everybody get to that solid story. So that is my dream for Fictionary. And what I want to do is I'm just going to bump over and look at the software and give you a little tour and show everybody what the software does. For anyone who's not familiar or anyone who wants some tips, feel free. Lisa, can you just nod that you're seeing the app? Yay, thank you. Perfect, perfect. Okay. So this is the start of the story editing journey. And part of the reason I created this software, I actually wrote the first lines of code and then quickly realized I needed to hire professional people to do that because, yes, enough said about that. But I started it because when I was working with my first publisher, I had 3 books on the go and I had this huge, massive spreadsheet trying to keep track of them and all my characters and what was happening and what my scenes were. And it was impossible. And my husband walked by and went, "What are you doing?" And I went, "I'm working on, I'm writing." And in Excel, I'm like, "Yeah." So he, of course, said there's an app for that. We couldn't find one. So we built one. So my husband and I built it together. And then since then, I've hired people to really build it, not just, our version of it. But that was the origin of it. And this is where this story editing journey goes. And I got to say, when I first wrote my books, now I look at it and I think, oh, I wish I'd known what I know now when I wrote those books. So I'm excited to say I'm working on a new book. Now I think I'm ready to go forward and actually, thank you, Sandra. I can see you clapping. I can see Carla smiling. Yeah, so I'm excited about that. So let's go to my bookshelf. This is at the top, and we're just going to start with an import so everybody can see what we're doing here. And I'm going to import Evolution. I'm just going to select the file, and this is a manuscript that I wrote during NaNoWriMo 1 year. I'll tell you about that in a second. Every chapter in this manuscript starts with the word chapter. You have different options here and you can pick, and this is how Fictionary is going to know how to organize your manuscript. In between scenes, I use a scene break character. And I want to say here, this is one of the first things that's helpful as you go through is to have scene break characters. And they have become something since the advent of ebooks. We don't know when a page break is going to occur. And so it used to be in print books, there would be a space between one scene and the next scene. And then if the scene ended at the bottom of a page, there would be a little pretty thing so that when you started the next page, Linda's smiling at me. I don't know the word for that pretty thing. And the next page would show, so you'd know the new scene starts. So if you're reading an ebook, which you never know when the page break is, if it hits over a split, the reader doesn't know. And then they get confused because they don't know they're in a new scene. And so the scene break characters are really, really important if you're going to make an ebook copy of your book. I use the tilde. You can use anything you want as long as it's a unique character. So don't use a question mark or something that else is there because you get a scene break from Fictionary everywhere it sees that character. So I picked the tilde because I typically don't have a tilde in my manuscript. You can use a star, that little hat thing, which also I'm sure has a word, but that's my technical term. So what Fictionary is doing now is it's scanning your manuscript based on that input. And now it breaks your manuscript up to chapters and scenes, and it gives you a format. So here, this is basically just showing you the whole manuscript. You can look down at the last scene and go, okay, yeah, that's the last scene. That looks generally good. It imported okay. If you get here and there's one scene per chapter, but you have more, it means it wasn't a clear enough scene break character. Or if not a consistent scene break character was used all the way through. So for example, star space star or star star is not the same. It's going to pick the first one and it's going to skip the others. So it's important to make sure that's accurate. You can always fix it up and re-import, but we're going to go, yep, this imported great. This manuscript is 26 chapters, 87 scenes, 78,000 words. Here, you want to think about your genre, and does this look right for your genre? So if you're writing an epic fantasy, might be a little short. If you're writing a young adult romance, might be a little long. So you can find that balance here, know right away if you know what your genre expectation is, this is your manuscript. We also pull out the cast of characters, and you can see it's not 100% on what it is. For example, this Doberman and the Doodle are dogs. So you can just, I know they're not characters, so you can just delete them and you don't need them. Maybe they are characters in some book and you do need them and they need a first name. That's okay too. So there's things you can do here like merge, delete, set as a protagonist, set as a single point of view. You can view a character's first scene. I often like that because I want to see where they come first in the book to see how well did I describe them, or did I describe them at all? Did I name them? What happened, right? So it's a handy one. And I'm not going to go through it all. I'm just trying to give you a bit of an overview so you can get a sense for what's in here. So I'm done for now. I can always come back to this page by going to the cast of characters. So if I hover over journey and go to cast of characters, I can go back. So if I'm editing and I realize, no, I'm going to get rid of this character altogether, I can take them out of this list, or didn't pick up a character, or, things like that. And so you can come back and edit. And, when you're first starting, it's kind of exciting, and maybe you don't want to start right there. So then we come back to the story editing journey, and we have a whole course on this in Fictionary Live, but I'm just going to talk about the story blurb a little bit to get everybody going. So you can add your story blurb. And a story blurb, so we talk about a thing called a skeleton blurb, and all it is who's your protagonist, what's their goal, and what's at stake if they don't meet their goal. So you can just add your story blurb. If you don't know it yet, that's okay. We're going to find, where's my protagonist? I didn't see her. Where'd she go? There she is. So Jazz is my protagonist. Her goal is to find out who killed her husband. There's more to it, but we're just going to make it easy. Otherwise, she will die. That's my story. That's it. In this case, it's just a mystery. Off we go. And so what happens, you can write a full story blurb if you want. This is just your very quick skeleton blurb. It's here now at the bottom, so you can always reference it. And poor Dana has to go to work. Work call. See, I work at my work. I mean, I live at my work. I don't know. My work is my life. It's awesome. So then we get to the story structure. So now we know what our story is. We get to the story structure. And I'm gonna go out of order just a tad because I want to show you the story arc first, and then we're gonna come. Do I want to do that? No, I'm not gonna do that. Yes, I am. I'm very undecided. I'm just gonna go here and look at my story arc. Linda's laughing at me. Okay. It took me a year to work on the mathematical formula for this to get it right or close. And what it's doing, so the blue line is typically what a commercially successful novel would be structured as. And it's showing the 5 key story arc scenes: the inciting incident, plot point 1, middle plot point 2, and the climax. And in the app, these are all explained. You can, any question, I'm going to point with my finger, not helpful, any question mark here, you can find information behind it to explain what these things are. And the books we have also go in detail to explain what they are. But generally, this is the area where this scene should be. And this is the scene in the manuscript where it is. And so this one is a pretty good story arc, and I'm going to show you a story arc later that's not good and how you're going to use it to try and structure your scene. And the most important thing to know about a story arc is this: if one of these 5 scenes is missing, there's no story yet. So I'll give you the clearest example. So if we look at the blurb, we're just going to pull up the blurb here. Jazz Cooper must find out who killed her husband. That's her story goal. The climax scene must address that. Either she does or she doesn't. It can't do anything else. And so if the climax scene is missing, the story has not ended. It's not over. There's no story yet. It has to be there. And as an editor, I'll often see a fantastic climax scene some great battle with a bunch of vampires and whatever, but it doesn't answer the question. So it hasn't satisfied the reader. They want to know the answer to that question. The other easy way to look at it is in plot point 1, this is where the protagonist accepts the story goal. And so here, Jazz has to accept that she's going to find out who killed her husband. If she doesn't, she never chases that goal, and there is no story. So these 5 scenes all have a reason for them, and they all have to be in the story. And then what we're showing you is an area where they can be. They don't have to be exactly here. They can be just generally in the right area. So don't try and force your book, if you're using the software, to go, okay, it has to be scene 42. Oh, sorry, the other one. It has to be scene 43. So now I have to put a new scene in. That's not the case. It just is in this general area to give you guidelines that they're there. And Javira says, as editors, can we practice on our own books? And yes, absolutely. So here's the thing I found. The first time I edited someone else's book, I had an easier time editing mine because it's easier to see things in someone else's work than in your own. And every time I edit someone else's book, it makes me better at editing my own. It's just super helpful. And even if you edit a friend's, it's a great thing to do because you learn so much. And when you see something in someone else's book, you go, oh, I do that. Huh, look at that. It doesn't work. Okay, I'm going to fix that. And so it's part of the reason I love editing. And it's a bit of a selfish reason, but I just learn so much when I'm doing someone else's so that I can then practice on my own book. So yes, absolutely. It's a great thing to do. Okay, now we're going to go back to the journey where I was waffling of what I wanted to show you first. So we're going to go to name your scenes. Name your scenes is part of Just Ask Fictionary. Lisa loves this. I can see her face. She's like, oh, name your scenes. So this is Just Ask Fictionary is the piece of our app that uses artificial intelligence. So you can choose to use it or not. If you don't use anything in Just Ask Fictionary, you're not using AI. How we chose to use AI, again, as my bias as a writer, is we're using it to help you edit and evaluate your story. We're not using it to help you write it. And so when you use AI in this form, the copyright is 100% yours. There's no issue. There's a lot of discussion in the industry right now is if a book is written by AI, whose copyright is it? So with this, we chose not to touch ever. We don't ever touch your manuscript. Only you can touch your manuscript and edit it. We can just give advice. So that's the point here. So when you hit this button, it's going to name all your scenes. So if you've named them all, maybe you want to import and do it on a second copy of your manuscript so that you're not overwriting what you have. And basically, this is creating an after draft outline. And it's naming every scene in the novel. And I'm going to give you some tips about this. So you can look at the name. And so we'll look at scene 1. And grief overwhelms that funeral. So that's a pretty good description of the scene. If it's enough that I think, yeah, I can remember what that scene is just by reading it, I'll leave it as it is. In my own copies, I often just name it funeral because I know this is a scene where Jazz goes to her husband's funeral. She gets overwhelmed and she runs away. She doesn't make it through the whole funeral. And so I'm happy with that name. If we look at scene 5, friends visit, there's some confusion, there's a tumor mystery, there's too much in this scene. So AI picked 3 different topics because there's no focus in the scene. And so just from the scene name, I can look at this and go, I should probably go have a look at this scene and think about what's the purpose and what do I really have to have in here. And for me, I find this really helpful in actually figuring out, does my draft make sense? So what we can do here, we can view the story outline. And what this has done now is this shows you the story arc scenes and then the scenes around it. So you can see what's leading up to an inciting incident, what's coming after. And if the names make sense, then you can just drag this little green box and see your whole manuscript. That's great. If the names don't make sense, it's your job then to go and look at that scene and figure out why couldn't AI pick out a name for the scene? And sometimes it could be it's just a really long scene and there's too much in it. Maybe you split it into 2 scenes or 3 scenes. And sometimes it could be you reread the scene and go, wow, that scene is, there's no point of view goal, or there's no middle to it, or whatever it is. So Linda has just made a suggestion. When I'm working on an edit, I save the scene name in the notes panel prior to using Just Ask Fictionary so I can compare to do. It's always helpful to, yeah, to see if AI thinks it's different from what I thought. And, that's a great thing to do, because then you can compare and see. And everybody will find a different way to use Fictionary. So I also want to stress that this is not about me saying this is the way you have to use it. This is just things that are in here, and you're going to find your own comfort zone and what's easy for you. On the evaluate page, if we go to Just Ask Fictionary, we can do a scene overview, which does the word count. Let's pick, do you want this one? No, I don't want that one. Yeah, you know what we're going to do? So this is picking up the wrong point of view, and I'm going to show you here's why. So here's a little tip. This is a first person manuscript. And Jazz has the point of view for every scene. So I'm just going to go Jazz Cooper. I'm going to set her as a single protagonist. All of the scenes are going to update in one go. And then when I look at these, now you can see, why didn't that update? And now it's going to make because I didn't, hang on, let me bounce. Nope, why didn't that work? I went too fast. Let me try that again.
Point of view character.
Oh, did I pick the wrong one? Yes, I did. Thank you. Whoever said, Lisa said that. Set as single protagonist. Don't do what I did and click set as protagonist, which is fine. She is the protagonist, so it's okay. Set as single point of view character. Whew. See, I started to sweat there because I was thinking, oh, is there an error in my software? Okay, now I'm nervous. I don't want to go over there and click, but I'm gonna. Why? See? What are you seeing? Oh. Why did see, now I'm wondering if I have an error in my software. My apologies for this. Why is it doing that? Did I pick Nick? Okay, I'm picking Jazz, right? Yes. Set as single point of view. Yes. Now I'm really afraid. There. Okay. So I might have clicked Nick. I don't know. Anyway, don't do what I did. Do it, do it in a way that makes it work. So now
Kristina.
Yeah.
You have to go back up to the top and hit save. Scroll back up to the top and hit save. I think.
Here. That's what I didn't do. Thank you. Thank you, Ro, for pointing out.
That's okay. I hope that works.
So there we are. We've got Jazz there. Okay. Does the program differentiate between active scenes and reactive scenes? So there, for now, you mark them. If we look here, we've got action sequel. So this is the action. Sequel is the same thing as a reaction scene. If you pull in an outline, you'll see that in there. So back to Just Ask Fictionary. So here, this one is giving you a scene overview. This one is going to pull out and evaluate tension and conflict. So I'm not going to go over these, but again, it's the same concept. In here, you're looking to read this and you're looking to see, does it pull out a goal and a reason for the goal failing? And does that make sense to you? And if it doesn't, you want to go back and look to see why couldn't it find a goal? And so Jazz just doesn't want to be at her funeral. Her whole goal is not to be there, and she doesn't make it through anyway. So you think, yeah, okay, that's fine. And so each scene is going to give you a little bit of a view of what the tension is, what the conflict is. And you can decide then, does that make sense for you? Sometimes scenes can be interpreted in different ways, and you know the context of your scenes best. So that is absolutely correct. You get to choose. AI is not saying it's right or wrong. It's giving you something you should think about. And then scene structure is looking at the scene name. And here, this scene has definite issues. And in our class, we go through a lot of them. But it's, who is the man staring intensely? That's at the midpoint. So that's not the entry hook. So AI can't find one, which means it should be looked at. The goal is to escape the funeral. And here, the scene middle Overwhelmed by grief, she flees. Well, she flees right at the end, right here. That's the last line in the scene. So there's no real scene middle. There's no turning point. And so this is showing me this scene has to be completely rewritten. And if you look at the word count, there's a good hint as to why. So that is Just Us Fictionary. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go back to the bookshelf. And here, everybody has example manuscripts here on their own bookshelf. And Evolution is a manuscript that we've, this is the one I was saying before, we wrote it with structural issues. So there's lots wrong with it. And so it's a good manuscript to edit and see what's in there. And so this has a full edit in it. So if we look back at the evaluate page, you can see everything's been filled out. We have all of our character story elements, plot, setting. In notes, we explain everything. So if you're looking for an edit, just to see what happens in a professional edit, to get hints, to see what you should be doing for yours, this is a great place to look. And so here, we're going to look at the manuscript insights. And this is what the manuscript looks like. And you can see here, oh, plot point 1, way out here. So this is showing that here's our blue line, this is our goal. And what we actually have, the inciting incident is fine to be high because the inciting incident could also happen before the book starts. So you don't really need to worry. As long as it's not too far after where it should be, you're fine with the inciting incident. So anywhere kind of here and back, great. Plot point 1 is somewhere between 20 and 30% into your novel. And here we're way out at scene 37. And so this novel is going to drag from here to here because the protagonist is not accepting the story goal. And the reader's going to get frustrated and bored thinking, well, do something. Like you can't just have an inciting incident and nothing. Boring. So this tells you too much here. So you look for too much description, too much backstory, scenes without a purpose, scenes that could come later after your plot point, and you try and rework your manuscript. And that's the highest level thing you want to work on from the start. This here, these two are too close. That means the story lacks depth. There could be missing scenes. In the outlines, we show you what scenes are expected by a reader to give you ideas of what to put in each of these sections of your novels. And here, you know, if you can move stuff from here to here, it's going to flatten it out. This is perfectly acceptable. This is perfectly acceptable. The climax sometimes can come right at the end in a romance novel. Once the happily ever after is there, it's quite common. There's very little that, you know, the reader's done. They want to go to the next romance book. Okay, yay, met the goal, go. Other ones have a longer resolution, like a fantasy book, especially if it's book 1 or 2 in the series. It will have a longer resolution because it's leading up to the next book, and there has to be enough in there. The goal has been answered in the climax, but you want the reader to read the next book. So again, these things, a little bit dependent on genre, always dependent on your story and what story you're telling, and you get to describe, you get to decide what it's going to be. So Tiffany says, a Fictionary subscription based? Yes, it's subscription based, and we have different, you'll see if you just do fictionary.co pricing, we have different pricing for it. It's month by month or annual. Okay, so this is my favorite insight. I just want to talk about the word count per scene because it's quite interesting, and often this is a real eye-opener. And so here what we're looking for, you can see here this scene is really short. It's got a lot of issues, this scene. It's the opening scene. And all of the other scenes are kind of around 1,000. And so you start looking at the shorter ones, or are there any longer ones, 1,600? What's going on in these scenes? Why is the balance out of place? And this becomes really valuable if you've written your manuscript in Word. It's really hard to see how long scenes are in the context of every other scene. And it's very interesting when you see someone's manuscript come in and it'll have, you know, a 5,000 word scene, which is really getting close to short story territory. Unless every scene is 5,000 words, fine. But if every scene is around 1,000 and then there's a big jump to 2,000 or 3,000 or 5, and it's not the climax scene, it's going to seem weird to the reader and it'll be off balance. Sorry, the x-axis on the I'm wondering, Bonnie, did you mean on the story arc versus the word count per scene? Sometimes the questions come a little slower. Here on the word count, it's the word count. On the story arc, it's just the tension. So the tension is going up, 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 and up. And you can see here it's going down, slowing the story. Here it's going up too quickly, particularly for this part in the story. That this is where people, you know, when you read a book and you think, yep, got it, got it, got it. But you know, you start skimming, it's because there's no depth, and this is happening too quickly. Scenes per chapter, also a very interesting one to look at right away, where you're looking for outliers, like why does this have 7 scenes versus everything else is 3, 4, and 5. And the biggest extreme I've seen was editing a manuscript that had 17 scenes in one chapter and maybe 2 to 3 in every other. And the problem is in Word, you can't see it. And so you don't know that you've actually done this until you see here. And then you go, oh, that is weird. And all that manuscript needed was chapter breaks to fix it. It was nothing significant. It took the reader 10 seconds to go, yeah, here, here, and here, done. And so it's a nice eye opener. And if we look at, let's just look at scene 10 there. Or sorry, chapter 10, I think it was. Here, right, here. So we go right away. Now here's a structural thing that we can fix, boom. So this has got a few too many scenes compared to the rest of the story. And here we have a plot point scene. So you know how we're taught when we're writing a sentence, the most important word comes first or last because you want the reader to remember it? That's what plot points are. So if you can, only if it fits your story, this could come at the beginning of a chapter or at the end of a chapter. And here she finds out Nick was murdered. That's her husband. And then in the next scene, she's accepted the goal. She's going to figure it out. Now she starts doing some research and finding things out. Well, finding out that, you know, your husband was murdered as opposed to dying in an accident, that's a big deal. And so you want the reader to digest that a little bit. So the easiest thing to do here is just to insert a chapter break. So all I did was click the little pencil. I'm going to click insert a chapter break. And now this ends here. We've reduced this to 6 instead of 7. And I would then look at, do these go together? Like, does this go? Because she finds the journal, then she shows Nick's notes. So here, this could actually go together. It's themed, it makes sense. And so we could just move these together. And so you use this as guidance to look at how to best structurally the reader for the chapters. So you're giving the experience you want to give to the reader. And I would then go back and look at this and think, okay, so there's some dog sitting, bad guy wants a dog back. And then we jump topics here to this character's husband cheated and the main character finds out. This is all about the dogs that could go together. This different, this leads to this, leads to this. You could put them all together. And so you start thinking about, how do you want the reader to experience your story, and what do you want to have jump out at them, and how do you want to make your story flow? And you make your decisions by that. And, you know, I might even look at this and think, okay, so here, this should really be its own chapter because, you know, it's the Nick notes that leads her to figuring out he was murdered. They really go together. This scene here, it's a bit odd there. So maybe it doesn't even belong in this piece of the story. So we've got scenes about dogs. We've got this cheating thing, what kind of leads, but maybe not. And so really just looking at your scene names and thinking about your scenes per chapter is going to make your book better. Before you do any editing of your text at all, you're looking really at the high structure or the high level structure of it. Sherry asks, is tension access on the story arc only the expected rising tension of the story? Is it affected by the tension description entry in the plot? It's only by the expected. So we're not analyzing the tension description. It's strictly about the word count, scene placement, etc. on the story arc. The other thing I want to show you is, let's go back to visualize for a minute. I want to show you story goal tracking. So when we look at here, do we need all of these scenes? So how do you answer that question? And here, if we go to, visualize character insights, we have a thing called story goal tracking. And here, what this is showing is for each scene, does that scene take the protagonist closer to or farther away from achieving their story goal? And what that means, so Jazz has to figure out who killed her husband, and that's going to be addressed in the climax. Well, every scene leading up to the climax is taking her either closer or farther away. The ones that are flat aren't doing either. So there's a big problem with those scenes, and you ask yourself, do I need this scene in my novel? After the climax, they've achieved their goal. So you could put this neutral and leave it flat. I just tagged them positive, but it doesn't really matter because once the goal is achieved, we're into the resolution and you're closing up your story. Up until this point, even things before plot point 1 where they've accepted the story goal, what events are happening in there that drive them closer to or farther away? They're making decisions, they're doing things. And to look at these, we look at the evaluate page, we go to the character tab, we can see story goal tracking. So here, behind the question marks, we have a whole bunch of information. If you want more, you can read more. We've got resources. It's all explained in there. And here, you decide what the scene is doing. And when you read the scene, you got to be honest with yourself and really look at, if you think about the story goal, is it driving the protagonist closer to or farther away? So if we had a romance and we're before the inciting incident, so there's no meet cute, and we're getting the point of view from both love interests. If there's a scene where we're just showing one of them at work, that's nice. That's their ordinary life, but it's doing nothing. If the scene is because one of them is at work and they're thinking of quitting and taking a job in another city, and that's where they're going to meet their love interest, that's great. That's taking them closer to. If they're making that same thought process going to take them away, that goes the other way. It's related. But if it's just them in their ordinary world, that's nice. They're at work. Great. So you want to really think hard. And here, if we go back to the story arc, we want to look at all the scenes in here and look for anything between scene 2 and scene 37 that we've set as neutral. And either we're going to rewrite those scenes, or we're going to cut them, or we're going to revise them. One of those things has to happen in here if we want to start working on fixing the structure of our novel. And I like to fix the structure first and then go to scene by scene editing and look at the, I'm actually word editing my book and looking at the structure of every scene. So I'm going to finish this off with one final insight, which is another one of my favorites, but I can have more than one because it's my tougher. The story map. So the story map is all of your story elements, and it is set up. So here we can look at just tension and conflict, and it'll pull out those elements for you. And here we can look at, so we have a goal, a point of view character, their goal. What if the goal fails? Well, there's weak consequences. So it's not a great goal. So her goal is just to get through the funeral. Okay, so if your husband's funeral and you run away, your whole family's going to understand. Like, what are the consequences? Maybe you're a little embarrassed. It's not really much. So it's very weak. So here I know I've got to edit this scene to fix that up. There's tension because they're at a funeral and there's some weird people there and stuff. And by weird, I mean, she doesn't know who they are. And so there's a little bit there. And conflict is all mostly internal. So this, when you're looking through it and you look at it honestly to yourself, these things will tell you, are you going to have tension and conflict in every scene? This one, clearly not, because there's an unclear goal. Oh, check marks. I'll get to that in a second. There's an unclear goal, so there's weak tension, it's just weak. So this scene maybe it doesn't even belong in the story. This could be one, I said from in between scene 2 and 37. Perhaps this is a scene that doesn't even belong in the book. The check marks are when you think it's really good. So here, if she fails, the consequences are she'll drown. Okay, that's good. Yep, strong consequences. It's the inciting incident. I gave myself a check mark. Or, who we had edit this gave a check mark. So that's for you. And so you can also, if you're really done with an element, you can just put a check mark and take the text out. And then you can start to see where you're still looking to edit your novel on here. Then we have scene structure. And this one, if you have a strong scene structure, so when you come into a scene, and again, I want to talk about flexibility quickly. So an entry hook can come after the point of view goal, and exit hook could be farther up. The exit hook could be lingering through multiple scenes, so it could be repeated. So there's lots of flexibility here. But the goal is here, know what your scene is about just by the scene name. The entry hook is what question is the reader going to ask when they start reading the scene. So you go, oh, I have to read this because I have this big burning question. The goal, they have to have a goal. If the point of view character does not have a goal in every scene, what are they doing? Nothing. They must be trying to achieve something, or they're not the point of view goal characters. They have to want something. The scene middle is either you change direction, you put conflict, something hard for them to make it hard to get the goal. There's lots of things you can do with the scene middle. Climax is addressing that goal, and it could be just partly. It could be just by changing the direction of the story. There's multiple ways you can handle it. And the exit hook is the question the reader is left at with the end. And over Christmas, I read a book by Penn Cole, and I'm going to forget, Glow, and it doesn't matter. And it's a romantasy book, and I read it because she's been extremely successful as she self-published her novel, ebook, and then her hardcovers got picked up by Simon and Schuster and her paperbacks. They picked her up because she sold so many, and so I thought, well, I got to go see what she did in this book. And it's a beautiful book to read. I'll stick it up later. I just can't remember off the top of my head. But this shows you the structure. Timelines and settings, same thing. That's what we're looking at, and story goal and pacing. So we're getting short on time, but this is a report that you can look at and really analyze your novel and figure out what you want to do with each of these scenes. Okay, I'm just going to look at the chat for a second. Okay, we did check mark. Sherry says, what is the scene gives information for the fantasy world and how decisions affect the character, but not directly related to the story goal for the current book? For instance, setting for another book. Okay, the trick to that, Sherry, that's a great question, first of all, because it's hard to do this. The trick is anything in the book needs to move this story forward. So if you can make the setting that's you need in the next world part of something the protagonist is interacting with in this world, then it's interesting to the reader, and it doesn't just become a description of this is a palace with a gold top, and I mean that's a terrible description, but you know what I mean. It doesn't just become a description of something. And that goes for any piece of information, anything you're doing, any revelation, any backstory. Try and make it do double duty so that it feels natural. You need it for the second book. And when you analyze books as hard as I do for looking for patterns, you can see the author probably went back from book 2 and went, oh, I need this in book 1. And then there's a scene where there's this object, but it's found in a way that's part of the existing story. And then it makes it really interesting. Well, Tiffany likes how she can keep track of that for herself. Yes. Awesome. Okay. That was sort of like a whirlwind tour. So let me just stop sharing and see if anyone else has questions. And I think Nick just came off mute.
Did the guy do his thing?
Oh, I think
this
Nick's
is
off
like, I
mute.
don't know.
There we go. I'll put Nick on mute because he's talking to somebody in his house and not us. Alrighty. Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? Come off mute. Type in the chat. Oh, thank you, Javira. That's very nice. Okay. 1 minute to go. Don't. I like being on time. Oh, okay. Sherry's jumping between books and in a series laying Easter eggs, which is really great that you're doing it across the books now because you can do it in a way that's going to be best for the story. And then it's really fun and you get some really interesting ideas of what to do and your first book will change because you're bringing stuff in from the next books. So it's kind of that's an exciting place to be. Um, Viver, what was the operational description you have for what the story map is used for? Okay, Viver, come off mute. I don't understand the question. Where are you? There you are.
Sorry. I was typing about something else when you were describing, what you can use, what the story map was really good for. And I thought, oh, I think that was really juicy, but I didn't hear all that.
Okay, what's juicy? So at the top of the story map, on the left box, you can see boxes. So you can just look at tension and conflict. You can look at the scene structure. You can look at timelines and descriptions, and you can look at story flow. And don't forget, always behind the question marks are a description of how to use that. And if you ever find a description you don't understand or it's not clear, please DM me and we can update it. And we're happy to do that. And we love getting feedback on stuff like that because it seems clear and obvious to us. And we think, yep, great. But that doesn't mean it is to everybody else at different places in their novel creation journey. Magali says, such an insightful look into the software. Thank you. I'm an epic fantasy writer working on a series, so I like that it can be applied. Let me just show you super quick, just in case you don't know it. I'm going to go back to the app and we're going to go to my bookshelf and we're going to do here, outline and write a novel. And there's two things that you might be interested in. And one is there's a fantasy outline and the other is a series outline. One for open series, which means it's endless, like Janet Evanovich series, there's a whole bunch of books, different story for each book, but connected. The other is a closed series like the Hunger Games, 3 books. It's done in 3 books. Sometimes it spins off to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but when you originally write it, that's what it is. And so here, Michelle's doing an open series outline. So she would click here and get that. Yes, Stephanie Plum. Thank you, Linda. She knows when I'm forgetting all their names, which is terrible. So for fantasy, we'll just click one just to show an outline. We'll call it test so I remember to delete it. And in the outline, we give you all of the reader expected scenes. We've put them in this order. You can reorder them. So this is here to know that the function is there, which with each of these in the notes, we've explained what, we've explained what each scene should do. And what you're looking for when you're using the outline is just that this function is here. Every book has an opening image, so that has to be there. I mean, you can't not have an opening image. You open page 1 and there it is, right? So it's got to be there. But the opening image and the lead up to the external exciting incident and the external exciting incident could all be one scene. So we're not saying it has to be separate scenes. We're trying to show the function that's needed in the novel. Here we've put the external exciting incident for a fantasy novel is before the supernatural one. Doesn't have to be that way. It can be flipped or they could be in the same scene, but the functions need to be there. So any of those outlines you can use before you've written your book and write in here or after and looking to see, do you have these scenes in your book? And so Sherry, she's going to have a look at this and make sure she's got her fantasy scenes. And then she's going to also look at the closed series outline. So she's got her structure for her full series. Okay, let me back up just a second. Oh, Magali's writing open series. Nice, very nice. Tiffany, for each of those fields, am I correct? We type the answers or does the app figure it out? Some the app figures out, some are drop-down menu, some you type the answer. And as we continue developing, we're making more and more of it automated. So you'll see the balance when it's actually there. Michelle, outline feature is brilliant. Oh, thank you. That's very nice. Sherry, epic fantasy. Elizabeth, what is the name of the author who, Cole Penn, C-O-L-E, last name is Penn, and Penn called 2 N's, P-E-N-N. Thank you, Louise. It's two N's. And so if you'll see her, she pops up like that. And honestly, I read it over Christmas, and it was one of those books that I didn't want it to end. And so as soon as I finished book one, I bought book two. And they're like, I don't want it to end. And I finished book two last night. So you know what I'm doing today. I'm buying book three. So, anyway, that was my Christmas present to myself. Lots of fantasy writers in Fictionary. So the outlines can help in different ways. And I mean, you can just use them to read through it, to see what the scenes are. You can write your whole book in here along with the scenes. And when you take the outlining course, you can do that. I think I missed a course. So Fictionary Live has two ways you can buy it. A question, I mean. You can buy it if you subscribe to Storyteller Premium software. It comes with the premium software, or you can just buy it in the community by clicking on it and just subscribing to the classes without the software, because not everybody likes use software, and I understand that, but that's just how it is. Alrighty, well, thank you, everybody. I hope everyone has a lovely, lovely day. We have some more free events coming up this week, so just check out on the events calendar, RSVP, and come.